Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 2021 Leadership Forum for Young Korean Americans. My name is Andrew Seol, VP for the Federation of Korean American Associations, serving as your co-master of ceremonies with Jean Twiley.
Good morning. Very nice to see you all here today. My name is Jean Twiley. I'm a Vice President of a Federation of Korean American Association and a President of a Delaware Korean Association.
Thank you again for all of you for joining us this morning. As you are aware, this is a very special occasion, especially for our youth. We have a great program scheduled for, again, our youth. We have young Korean professionals who are very, very successful. And obviously for all of you, the career path is way ahead of you, and you have so much opportunity. And this program hopefully will inspire and enlighten all of you to make a decision later on of all the wonderful opportunities.
And I would love to take this opportunity to introduce our organization, Federation of a Korean American Association. Our mission statement is to provide resources, programs, networking opportunities, promotions and recognition of local Korean American associations to build our community to be a better place to live. And currently, we are representing 6 states: New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Delaware.
We'd like to, before we officially start, I'd like to mention a special gratitude to Consulate General Chang. He has been very supportive of the Korean American community, and we appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we would like to start with the opening prayer by our Reverend Tim Haas.
하형록 목사님의 개회 기도가 있겠습니다.
Well, good morning, leaders. All day long today, I guess just about 3 hours, you're going to be hearing so much about leadership and what it takes and what do they do, from insights to having vision and also sacrifice. You know, sacrifice is synonymous with the leadership. Someone said this, I think it really sums up what the leadership is all about. When I speak to managers, I get the feeling that they are important. But when I speak to leaders, I get the feeling that I am important. That's really the essence of the leadership. That's what we're aspired to do, to make others feel important and make them trust. The managers maintain the status quo, but leaders create and originate. Managers, they strive for control, but the leaders inspire trust. And managers focus on the system, procedures, but leaders focus on people. So I'm here to open today's leadership forum by stating that overarching essence of leadership comes from the one who created heavens and earth. With that in mind, let us pray and seek his wisdom. Father God in heaven, we thank you for creating us in the beginning, and to this day, leading us to sound place. As we begin this leadership from 2021, we seek to understand your supreme leadership. You created the heavens and earth and gave us the insights to leadership. That heaven is our vision, and the earth is where we carry out the overarching driving force of leadership that you have taught us, that is to love others beyond self. Father God, as our leader, we are thankful that you focus on people, not on the system, because we know that you came to save us. We worry about what to eat today, but you had in mind the eternal life for all of us. Instead of judging us in accordance with the rules and regulations, you thought after doing the right thing, not just requiring us to do the things right. We often fume with hate, but you taught us the amazing power of forgiveness in leadership. As our leader, God, you showed us the ultimate leadership, that you have a sacrifice for us, and you are still in the business of saving us and leading us to that abundant life. And we understand that to acquire the leadership like you, we are to have utmost respect and honor, just as the book of Proverbs reminded us that the fear of God is the beginning of the wisdom and knowledge for all things in life, especially leadership. So today, teach us and guide us and lead us to the pathway to great and humble leadership. We know that all the leaders pray. Even your son prayed. So this morning, we pray that this leadership forum will go well, that everyone will be challenged and go home with a newly inspired vision, and also that everyone here will be safe. We pray for our country to once again be united in doing the right thing, not just trying to do things right. We also pray for the innocent people of Afghanistan, that you make them strong as they are facing horrible tragedy right now. And in the near future, that you will raise and anoint many new leaders who will lead with God-fearing humbleness. I pray this in the name of our God, who created heavens and earth, and who have given us all the wisdom and knowledge we need to lead as a servant leaders. And as for me personally, the one who changed my life, your son, Jesus. Amen.
Look.
손한익 회장님께서, 뉴저지 회장님께서 개회 선언해 주시겠습니다.
지금부터 주 뉴욕 대한민국 총영사관과 미 동북부 한인회 연합회가 공동 주최하는 2021 차세대 리더십 포럼을 시작합니다. And now we are starting leadership forum for 2021 for all Korean Americans. Thank you.
We'll continue to. Thank you. We'll continue to continue with a national ceremony.
국회의 경례.
바로
We're going to have the singing of the national anthem by Adon and Cho.
조아다 양께서 국가를 제창해 주시겠습니다. Please have a
Please
seat.
give a nice round of applause. Thank you.
나를 같아
Thank you. Please be seated.
저 다음 순서로는 환영사가 있겠습니다. Welcome remarks by Ambassador 원삼 Chang.
Please welcome Ambassador Chang up to the stage. Thank you.
장원삼 주 뉴욕 대한민국 청영사님께서 환영사를 해주시겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Made strong progress in our shared fight against COVID-19. And I'm even more glad that we get to meet and talk to each other face to face this year. So before I begin, I want to take this opportunity to thank our COVID-19 frontline heroes. With their hard work and sacrifice, we've made it this far. And I'm hopeful that we will be able to come out of this long, dark tunnel and get our lives back to normal soon. Likewise, it is a great pleasure to welcome you back this year to the 2021 Leadership Forum for Young Korean Americans. Today's forum is intended to provide a venue for young Korean Americans. First, to cultivate their identity as Koreans. Second, to widen their vision for the future of the community. And last but not least, to network with their peers and the community at large. These are the three aims we had in mind for organizing this forum. What's more, these goals are also helpful for young Koreans, young people to live a meaningful life for themselves and also for the good of the community. So as we begin, be sure to listen, engage, and most importantly, connect through this forum. With that said, I have two things I want to convey to you, I mean the young Korean Americans, as my message today. My first message is this: be proud of your identity as Korean Americans. As you are well aware, your motherland, the land of your heritage, Korea, is no longer a backward country, nor the hermit kingdom of the past. She is now a full-fledged democracy with a world-class economy led by innovation and cutting-edge technology. She boasts a long history and also rich culture that is now spotlighted on a global stage. In short, there's no disputing it. Korea is an amazing country. Here in America, the Korean American community is no exception. It has grown by leaps and bounds. Like our speakers and special guests today, many remarkable Korean Americans have made great strides politically, culturally, and economically. As a result, the community is now gaining greater presence and voice within mainstream American society, contributing to its continued prosperity and diversity. So, you have every reason to be proud of being a Korean American. And I urge each and every one of you to cherish your identity and aim high as proud Korean Americans. My second message is, never forget that you are the pillars of the Korean community. It was the first generation who laid the very foundation of the community. Through sheer grit, hard work, and self-sacrifice, they did their job, often against incredible odds. You have to respect and appreciate them for what they have been able to accomplish. Now, as pillars of the community, it is your turn to build upon that foundation because the community's future is in your hands. You are in charge of the future of the community. And I have no doubt your successes and achievements will become proud legacies of the community. When that happens, your contributions will be the stepping stones for future generations who will come after you. The speakers and special guests we invited today are successful leaders in their respective fields, and they are here to contribute and give back to the community. In a way, they came as mentors to share their experiences to support young Korean Americans. So please use this opportunity, learn from them to make your own success stories and act as the pillars of the community and also mentors for future generations. Here I have a personal request for all of you. In order to fully develop your identity, I believe the key is to learn the culture of your heritage and the language of your roots. They are two sides of the same coin, identity. So please take your time to learn more about the Korean culture and the Korean language. Now, in closing, I'd like to thank today's speakers and special guests for their participation, support, and contribution. And I also want to thank President Lee Ju-hyung of the Federation of Korean American Associations of Northeastern USA, Korean American Association presidents from each region, and staff members for preparing this event. Like our first forum last December, it was wonderful to partner with them again for this meaningful gathering. Lastly, I want to thank all of you for joining us and hope you will find this forum helpful and worthwhile. I wish all of you the best of luck and success in your future endeavors. Stay safe, stay healthy, and God bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Now, we'd like to welcome the president of the Federation of Korean American Association of Northeastern USA, Judy Yu.
다음 환영사는 이주향 미동북부 한인회 연합회장님께서 해주시겠습니다.
안녕하세요, 여러분. Hello, everyone. My name is Judy Yu. I'm the president of Federation of Korean American Associations of Northeastern USA. Thank you so much for coming to 2021 Leadership for Young Korean Americans. Special thanks to Ambassador Won Sam-chang for his leadership and his office's support and collaboration to co-host this event this year. And also special thanks to all the distinguished guests and speakers and panels and then sponsors and Korean American community leaders and key members for being here this morning to support our young leaders. Thank you so much. Today, through the listening, the experiences and visions and special success tool from our speakers, I hope our young leaders learned and achieve and gain the motivation that they need to set goals and dreams for their own future success as proud Korean American. 미 동북부 한인회 연합회와 뉴욕 총영사관이 2년째 공동 주최하는 우리 차세대 리더십 포럼에 와주신 여러분들 환영합니다. 우리 미 동북부 지역이 이렇게 건강한 프로그램을 계속 지속적으로 발전시켜서 서로 소통하는 아름다운 커뮤니티로 발전하기를 소망합니다. 특별히 우리 각 지역 6개 주에서 12군데 한인회가 참석했어요. 우리 12군데에서 진짜 팬데믹 동안 헌신하시고 봉사하시는 우리 지역 한인 회장님들 존경을 표하며 멀리서 찾아와 주셔서 감사드리고 오늘 프로그램들 많이 인조이 하시기 바라겠습니다. Everybody enjoy the rest of the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you, President Yu. Now, we would like to have the congratulatory remarks. First, we would like to welcome Kimberly Ferlero. She's the Connecticut State Representative, and she's the first Korean American representing the 149th District.
송민경 커네리컷 주하원 의원님께서 축사를 해주시겠습니다.
Thank you so much. 안녕하세요. 송민경입니다. Thank you so much for this incredible program and the beautiful prayer by Reverend Haas, the unbelievable singing by Adeline Cho, and the MCs, Jin and Andy, and the beautiful remarks by Ambassador Chang. I am Kimberly Fiorello. I represent the District of Greenwich and Stamford in the Connecticut General Assembly. Like some of you, I was born in Seoul, Korea. I know we have second-generation Korean Americans here, but I was born in Seoul, and I moved to the United States when I was 10 years old. And I grew up in Virginia. I went to West Point and Harvard. I'm a mother of 4 children, and most recently, I decided that I wanted to have a voice in my state government. Myself, volunteers, a bunch of us went around and knocked on thousands of doors to run for this statewide seat, and we won. So I now... Thank you. And that victory has given me this opportunity to speak to all of you, and I'm so grateful to Judy Yu for her work in trying to recognize leadership in Korean Americans. I also recently had the opportunity to meet Korean global politicians. I had no idea that there was this vast diaspora of Koreans in political power. I met political leaders of Korean New Zealanders, Korean Germans, Korean Canadians, Korean Russians. There were all these translators trying to make sure we could all speak to each other. But the thing was, we were all Korean of Korean heritage. And all of us in this room, we are Korean Americans. We have the inheritance of 2 amazing cultures. And as Ambassador Chang said, as Koreans, we stand on the shoulders of a very rich and old society. We should appreciate the genius of Hangul. The Korean alphabet is brilliant in its clarity and simplicity, and we should appreciate Korean architecture. Hanok buildings is a beautiful way to live as a family, and something we should bring to America and talk about. We also have the Korean fight for freedom. As a legislator, I had the opportunity to meet veterans who fought in the Korean Wars as well. And as Americans, we have the incredible heritage of living in a country that is uniquely found on appreciating individual rights. We live in the only country founded on the idea that we each are our own sovereign, and we have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And as Korean Americans, we're doing great, aren't we? I mean, what an incredible example we have here of Korean American voices as entrepreneurs, as chefs, as animators, and writers and thinkers. And yet, when you try to go out and achieve something, you do feel alone. And it's hard. And I think organizations like this, forums like this, are so valuable because it reminds us that we are not alone. And thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of Team Korean American, and I look forward to being here. I brought a stack of business cards. I very much want to meet all of you. Please come find me at the table, grab my card, and let's connect, because that's what this is about. Team Korean American, we have to meet and stay connected and support each other. So thank you so much, Judy Yu, and all of the leaders of this organization. Thank you for having me.
Next, we would like to welcome David O. He's a Philadelphia City Council member. He's actually the first Asian American elected to City Council.
다음 축사로는 데이비드 오 필라델피아 광역 시의원님께서 해주시겠습니다.
All right. I'm too short to stand behind here. You just see my head. No, thank you very much. Well, let me just add to it with this. Life is hard enough. Don't make it any harder by being ignorant and easily misled. Whatever you want to do, whatever you aspire to be, that's fantastic. But please, make sure you get a good education and have knowledge. And don't just receive your knowledge from others, get it yourself, so that you know what is happening and how you can make your decisions. I resigned from the DA's office to join the Army as a private. I wanted to serve, but I also thought I was doing something special until I got to Fort Benning Infantry Hall and I saw a portrait of Asian Americans fighting in World War II. And I looked and I read about the most highly decorated unit for its size and length of service, the Japanese Americans fighting in World War II, the 442. And I realized that through high school and college and law school, I had not been told something, and I was not aware of something that affected me. I'm happy that I served, but I later learned about the rich history of Asian Americans, Korean Americans, Chinese Americans, all sorts of Asian Americans in our military history, going back to the War of 1812. What else did I not know? I graduated from law school. I was a lawyer, but for most of the time, even though I loved reading and studying about our Constitution, no one ever told me, and it never occurred to me, that the 14th Amendment, which granted people in America the right to be citizens and have equal protection of the law, did not apply to Asians. The Immigration Act of 1870 said it is for people who were white and of African heritage. It was not until 1965 that laws that forbade Asians from opening businesses and owning property were illegal in this country. Can you imagine that? How much of the things that affect you and me are things we never understood? This is a wonderful forum, and I thank all the special guests, and I thank the Consulate General of New York and the Federation of Korean American Associations of Northeast USA for putting it together. My final comment, just to add on to the speakers, is this. The best things in my life I did not earn, and I do not deserve. They were gifted to me. My wife, my 4 children, my health, and other things like that. Be prepared, do your best, but unless you take a leap of faith, or unless you act with faith, not because you are guaranteed to win, because it is the right thing to do, leap out. Maybe your parachute won't open. That's not the reason not to leap out. Leap out. Thank you.
Next, we would like to welcome Charles Yoon, President of the Korean American Association of Greater New York.
찰스윤 뉴욕 한인 회장님께서 축사를 해주시겠습니다.
네, 여러분 안녕하십니까? 오늘 이렇게 뜻깊은 행사를 준비해 주신 이주향 회장님, 그리고 또 이 행사에 물심양면으로 도움을 주신 장원삼 총련사님께 감사를 드립니다. Hello everyone, I'm Charles Yoon. I'm the president of the Korean American Association of Greater New York. You are here today at an event that is hosted by the Federation of Korean Associations in the Northeast United States. And you see here today a number of representatives from Korean American associations, the 한인회. Okay, the purpose of 한인회 is to advocate for Korean Americans in all aspects of their civil life, including trying to impart a sense of culture and identity, and to also help you succeed in your careers. So the Consul General has eloquently stated that you should have pride in Korea, that you should have pride as a Korean American, and that you should be a pillar for the community. And I say now as number 4, that the way to do that is to participate in the Korean American community's development. And the organizations that are here today that put this program in live a daily life of wondering, thinking about how are we going to improve the lives of Korean Americans. You just have to look back the past year and a half when every community leader that I see here today has worried about the pandemic. Okay, how are we going to safeguard the Korean American population? How are we going to distribute the PPE to those people who are most in need? How are we going to help those who have been economically disenfranchised? And how are we going to help those families suffering from food insecurity? It is those worries that we get together to solve. And after that, we went out to register more people for the census. Why? Because we want a voice. By being counted, we can have a voice. And after that, we go out to register people to vote. Why? Because we want to elect elected officials who could be a voice for us. So I invite all of you today to think about many issues, think about your careers, think about how you want to give back. But I would also ask you to think about the Korean American community and think about it in the context of all the leaders who are here today. Thank you very much.
Okay, next we would like to welcome Linda Lee, the president of the Korean Community Service.
다음 축사로는 뉴욕 한인 봉사센터 회장 린다 리께서 해주시겠습니다.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me here. It's quite an honor to be amongst such amazing leaders. I feel very humbled. I don't know why, Judy, you asked me to speak today. But I just wanted to offer my welcome and my gratitude and my thanks. And I agree with everything that everyone said. Councilmember David O, as well as. And thank you so much to Christine. That is such an amazing, I will share with you my quick journey because I totally hear everything what you're saying about knocking on thousands of doors. So the 3 things I was thinking about in speaking today is that number 1, especially for the youth, it's okay not to know every next step, right? It's okay not to have your entire future planned out for you, and that's fine, and it shouldn't cause anxiety. Because I think some of the best things happen when you allow things to just naturally occur. And the second thing I was thinking was it's okay to really question and to ask yourself, what could we do better as a culture, society? What keeps you up at night? I was part of a leadership forum recently where they asked that question. What are some of the things that you see that we could problem solve? And it's okay to question certain things that are status quo. And the third thing I would really encourage is to always remain humble and remember your roots and where you come from. When I started working at KCS, I was the first, it's a 48-year-old organization in New York City providing social services. I wasn't planning on going into nonprofit. I actually wanted to go into investment banking, make tons of money out of college, but God had other plans. And so I ended up spending a year teaching English in China in Yeonbyeon, and then came back and worked in nonprofit, decided to go to social work school. When I told my parents I was going to social work school, they were like, what is that? And I said, I don't know, and I'll figure it out, and I'll let you know. And I never knew that there was an entire field dedicated to just helping people. And this is one of the things I realized, wow, no one actually taught me or spoke to me about the fact that you could go into nonprofit and social work as a career. And one of the things I realized when I first went to grad school was, I was doing research on Asian Americans and mental health. And there was no data. And I was shocked because I was like, wow. The reason why I went into this field also is because mental health is such a passion for me. And I have very close friends and family that suffer from mental illness. And so the fact that there's no data was surprising to me and was the first kind of aha moment where I was like, this is gonna keep me up at night because I know that this doesn't mean that there aren't issues in our community, right? And so if there's no data to capture that, how are we going to tell the narration and tell the story to people that this is an issue? So when I joined KCS, I was like gung-ho, yeah, I want to give back to the community, and here's my chance as a second gen to give back to the first gen and my parents' generation. And I wanted to do the work on the ground, and I didn't know what it was that I was meant to do later in life, but I just knew, okay, whatever it is, I need to be on the ground and understand what the barriers and issues are. And once I got into the social service world, I realized, wow, it's all about policy, right? And in social work school, we used to make fun of the policy wonks. We're like, it's like, like what is policy, right? And then you get into the real world and you realize the legislators decide how I deliver my services at my mental health clinic and decide what the regulations are. And if I do not have a seat at the table, and if I don't have a voice to represent the issues in my community, then how are they going to create laws and legislation and policies that reflect what immigrants, what Korean Americans are struggling with, right? So for me, that started my long, 12-year journey at KCS. And that's really, what led me to decide finally, through the encouragement of a lot of mentors in the community, to run for office. And so I have a general election coming up. I won the primary in June, which was a huge feat, but so if I can win the general in November, myself as well as our friend Julie Wan will be the first Korean Americans in New York City Council. There's never been Korean American in New York City Council before. And so I say this to say not like, oh, you did such a great job, Linda, but representation matters. And I feel like for me, I see my I see myself as more of a bridge, right? To say, it's important to see people that look like me and all of us in various different fields. And so that's why I'm very excited to see the speakers that are here today, and especially our moderator, Sharon Lee, who's the first Queensborough president, which is a huge deal, and to see that there is representation in our community. And in my district, I'm the first female and first person of color to win that seat. It's only been represented by white men. So I think there's a shift that's happening, and it's so encouraging to see all the leaders. So and I really encourage the youth, take advantage. Like Kimberly was saying, take advantage of the fact that this is a networking event, right? We're all here because we need to really learn from one another, and to see that there are people that look like us in these seats. And for me personally, I give it all back to the first generation, because when I think about the fact that they moved to a completely different country without knowing the language, I can barely speak English perfectly, so I think that's an issue. But when I think about what the first generation Koreans did in all of the different countries around the world, it really is such an amazing feat that they accomplished. And I wouldn't be here without their sacrifices and without their giving, to our generation. And hopefully that's something that I can do for my kids. So thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing from everyone today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda. Now we'd like to welcome back President Yu. She'd like to introduce the guests. Oh, we'll do that, then we'll do the video afterwards.
Actually, I asked for everybody for 2-minute speech, but everybody got so excited. All the guests, I guess, end up 4-minute, 5-minute speech. But anyway, thank you so much. And at this time, I cannot introduce everybody, so I'm just going to introduce our Korean American Association leaders, because they came from so far away. Some people, I think, drove 3-4 hours. So I'm going to introduce one more time, 뉴욕 한인회 회장님, 찰스 윤 회장님, Korean American Association of Greater New York, and 뉴저지 한인회 우리 손한익 회장님, 네, Korean American Association of New Jersey, and also Philadelphia. She drove 3 hours. Sharon Hwang, President Sharon Hwang, and all the key members from Philadelphia, and 우리 Queens 한인회, 우리 John An, President John An, and his members. Thank you so much for joining us. And 우리 Westchester 한인회 우리 박윤모 회장님, 감사드립니다. And then also Connecticut 한인회 오셨는데 오기정 회장님 감사합니다. He drove like 3 hours, I think. And Massachusetts 한인회 우리 서영희 회장님 actually 4-5 hours driving. Thank you so much for being here. And 우리 팔리사데스 파크 한인회에서 우리 또 여러분이 오셨는데요. 한번 일어나 주시겠어요? 우리 스테파니 장 우리 대표님께서 회장님 대신 참석하셨습니다. 그리고 우리 또 제가 또 잊어버린 데가 있죠. 지금 안 보여서 죄송합니다. 우리 스태튼 아일랜드 한인회 우리 이상호 회장님 참석해 주셨고요. 그리고 우리 저기 폴리 황종호 회장님 어디 계시죠? Thank you so much for joining us. And 그리고 우리 연합회에 진짜 너무 많은 힘을 주시고 있는 우리 중앙 펜실베니아 한인회 리처드 초이 최태석 회장님 손 좀 흔들어 주세요. Thank you so much. 그리고 우리 남부 뉴저지 한인회에서 우리 잔성 우리 목사님하고 여러분이 함께 참석해 주셨는데 손 한번 흔들어 주세요. South Church Korean American Association. And 우리 many I do have many guests, but I cannot introduce everyone. But we'll have some network during the lunch time. Thank you so much. 제가 잊어버린 분은 없죠, 우리 한인회? 네, 감사합니다. 네. Okay. Jean Twilly. Actually, she's the president of Delaware Korean Association, and she's working really hard for our association. And Andy is actually former Manhattan Korean Association. So thank you so much. Thank you.
So we actually fell behind our schedule. So we were planned to just move forward, but we actually have 3 congratulatory speeches from our local politicians. We have Patty Kim from the PA State Representative, Ron Kim from the New York State Representative, and Hannah Kim. She's actually Deputy Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So we'll be playing the short congratulatory video. Thank you.
축사로 패리 캠 펜실베니아 주 하원 의원님, 런 캠 뉴욕 주 하원 의원님, 하나 캠 연방보건복지부 차관보님께서 영상을 짧게 보내주셨습니다. 그거 마저 듣고 그룹 사진 촬영하도록 하겠습니다.
Hi everyone, this is State Representative Patty Kim. I represent the 103rd District for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I want to welcome you to this year's Leadership Forum for Young Korean Americans. Growing up, I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me in politics and in government. And as I had to find my way, make a lot of mistakes, I am now in a place where I feel that I can really serve the people in my district, which I find incredibly rewarding and satisfying. Whatever you decide to do, whatever journey you're on, I hope that you can learn from our experience, benefit from our network, so that you can get to where you want to be a little bit faster and a little bit easier. Again, I hope that this session is incredibly productive and beneficial. I hope you stay safe, and thank you so much for letting me say a few words tonight.
Hi, this is Assemblymember Ron Kim. I am so thrilled to be a special guest who may not be attending directly. I am suffering from a leg injury and I can't travel. But I see that there's a wonderful lineup of amazing speakers for this Leadership Forum for Young Korean Americans, sponsored by our Consul General of the Republic of Korea in New York, Won-Sum Chang, and the Federation of Korean American Association of Northeastern USA, my friend Judy Yu. I know that Judy has done so much events throughout the past couple of years, especially around empowering 1.5 second and next generation of leaders. This is very important work, especially at a time when we need young people to step up to public service and take ownership of our communities. I look forward to listening in to Jin Kim, Hannah Bae, Chris Cho, David Kim, and my good friend Sharon Lee, who will be moderating this wonderful panel. Thank you so much and best of luck.
Hi everybody, my name is Hannah Kim, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs for Healthcare at the United States Department of Health and Human Services, former Chief of Staff and Communications Director to U.S. Congressman Charlie B. Rangel, and founder of Remember 727, as well as the ambassadress of the Korean War Veterans Memorial Foundation. Congratulations on taking the most important step to becoming a leader. You showed up today to learn from some of the most successful Korean American role models. I hope you will leave motivated and inspired to pursue your own dreams and passions. Whether you are interested in becoming an animator like Jean, a journalist like Hannah, a chef like Chris, or a CEO like David, believe in yourself and just do your best. You can also become an elected official like Borough President Sharon Lee and many of the special guests who are serving the community. They have paved the road for you to succeed and joining you today to cheer you on. I too am proud to support President Judy Yu's efforts to expand your vision and horizon. Never let your gender, age, race, and background determine or define who you are or what you can achieve. Don't be afraid to fail or fall. Keep on trying and move onward. Good luck, and I wish you a successful journey to becoming a leader. Bye.
We would like to wrap up this session by taking a group photos. So due to pandemic, we're trying to be more conscious, do the healthy way. So we will do 3 different groups.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being patient with that little intermission. As you may have heard, my name is Sharon Lee. I have the honor and the privilege to serve as the moderator of this annual forum, We're running a little tight on time, but we're going to do the best that we can. We planned for a 75-minute conversation, now we got 45, but we'll do what we can. And I just wanted to thank, the distinguished speakers earlier were just really moving, really inspiring, especially Reverend Haas. You level set us really well, specifically about the difference between managers and leaders, right? And that's really why we're here. And in particular, what the Reverend said about servant leadership was really moving. So I just wanted to raise that up real quick. This is the second annual such forum put on by the Federation of Korean American Associations in Northeastern USA. What's that? What was that? Let's mute ourselves until it's our turn. So this is the second annual one. There was one last year, it was virtual. And when we think about the times that we've had these forums, 2020 and 2021 in particular, were times of reckoning here in the United States. Reckoning about racism, reckoning about discrimination, second-class citizenship, discrimination. And it's been a reckoning about being visible and being heard, right? Or the flip side to that, being invisible and not being heard, being silent, and the cost of that. And whether it's in the newsrooms, boardrooms, legislative chambers, the bench, there is a movement, momentum happening in our country that paves the way for so many opportunities for our young people. And the sky is the limit, but it has to be intentional. It has to be intentional, and that's precisely why we're here. And so I wanted to thank again the Federation, the leadership of Judy Yu, Andy, Jin, and all the volunteers, of course, Consul General Chang. And just a real quick note, you may have heard the census numbers dropped just last week. And as Asian Americans, we are the fastest growing group in this country. Our critical mass is growing at, I saw words like explosive. I heard words like surge and swell. And they're seeing that we're gonna be in the multi-millions in the next 10, 20, 30 years. And so we want to make sure that that means also that that power and opportunities, whether it's representation, is also matching that growth in critical mass. And so, you know, we talk about you can't be what you can't see. That's what we heard a lot of earlier today. You can't be what you can't see, and that's precisely why we have this forum here. You know, you have program booklets in front of you. We've got bios about our distinguished speakers today. But I just want to do a quick profile check, if you don't mind. So we'll start with Jean, and I'm going to ask each of our speakers, when I quickly introduce them, tell us 5 things in particular. We're going to ask you where you live now, your birthplace, which generation you are, right? Are you second gen like Linda Lee, next council member Linda Lee? Are you first gen? Are you fourth gen? Your social handles, and then also just one sentence about how to get into your industry. And if you have pens, paper, highlighters in front of you, write this down. So we've got, of course, first, Jean Kim, animator, filmmaker, artist.
Hi, hello. Thanks, everyone. I live now in Edgewater in the country of Republic of New Jersey. My birthplace is Seoul originally. I'm a 1.5 generation Korean American, so yay for the fractions. And one sentence on breaking into what I do. It's going to be a long sentence, so you know, you got to look at the work of people already in the industry. Then you got to do whatever it takes to get to that level of work. You got to be really hard on yourself. And then also start connecting with people in the industry. Somebody will take will give you a hand back, you know, whether that's through cold emailing or not. So it's hard work, you know, being educated and relationships. That was a novel, not a sentence, sorry.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Bay, and I am living in Brooklyn, New York. I was born in Hinsdale, Illinois, just outside Chicago, and I'm second generation, and I would recommend that anyone who's interested in getting into journalism to look at AAJA.org. That's the Asian American Journalists Association. It has been instrumental in my career, and they have fantastic programs for high school students, college students, and graduate students to get hands-on training and mentorship. So definitely check out AAJA, the Asian American Journalists Association. Mentorship, so definitely check out AAJA, the Asian American Journal.
My name is David Kim. I live in Atlanta, Georgia currently. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, grew up in Baltimore, which makes me a second generation. some words on how to get into business, I would say is, maybe watch your parents if they're a business owner, but having curiosity about different businesses that are going on out there, having the courage to try out your ideas, and then most importantly, you need to find some cash to be able to do your business. So I would say just think about those 3 C's.
And Chris Cho.
Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Chris Cho. I'm here in Philadelphia, and I'm a 1.5. I think I'm a first generation and Korean American. They call it 1.5세. I came in when I was like 7, 8 years old, and I'm in the restaurant industry. And my advice for restaurant industry is just find a restaurant that you like or a chef you like, and then ask if you could just work there, maybe even for free if you lack the skills, or just jump in any kitchen to see if you really like it, because it's a really easy industry to get into. And I know on the TV it makes it super easy to do, but just first jump in the kitchen, see if you like working 40 to 80 hours a week, and you'll know if you love it or you don't. So that's my advice.
And I'm going to take the liberty, Chris. You're not just in the restaurant industry and chef, but you're also a bit of a social media personality. I don't know if you saw, he has over 1 million TikTok followers. So we're glad you're here. I don't know if we're on TikTok right now. But as you can see, so am I right to glean that, are there any doctors on stage? No doctors. Are there any lawyers on stage? Anyone in banking? Anyone in banking? And so this really shows kind of the breadth of Korean Americans who are trailblazing in all different industries, and it's just absolutely remarkable. And as you can hear, we're coming from all over the country. We're coming at all different times. We live in all different parts of the country. But the 2 things that we have in common. Number 1, we are of Korean descent. And number 2, yes, that's right. And then number 2 is that we share a sense of responsibility that as we advance, it is our obligation to pull people up, to push people up, to push people forward in front of us. And so, as our representatives earlier today mentioned, please make use of the next 2 hours to connect with us, social handles, business cards, because we are here to push you up and to push you forward. And so with that, we're going to have a conversation today because everyone's a trailblazer in their own right. Folks, you have paper. If you think of questions that you want to ask at the very end, we'll try to fit in some questions from the audience. But speaking of trailblazers, and I'm going to start with Hannah and maybe David, and then anyone jump in when you want to. You're all blazing trails in your respective fields. A lot of unknown, a lot of gray, right? And you're bucking now outdated stereotypes of what it means to be an Asian American professional, right? And so, but with trailblazing, as was mentioned, there's a lot of burden, and there's some loneliness. There's a lot of uncertainty. So what were some of the most salient challenges that you faced when entering your field, rising to where you are today, your vision for where you want to go as a Korean American, and how did you handle those challenges? Hannah, will you start us off?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. So, of course, you face a lot of challenges when you're entering a field that doesn't have a lot of people like you. I was so lucky that early in my career, I connected with Asian American Journalists Association, and I actually joined while I was living in Seoul, South Korea as a journalist. I had moved there right after college, and it opened doors for me. I didn't know very many journalists when I first started out, but it was such an incredible way to connect with people who saw me, who encouraged me, and truly have continued to push me forward. And that's a big part of why I stay involved in organizations and come to speak at forums like this one, is because I really want other people to have that same amount of help, and I want to help push it forward. More recently, I have moved into creative nonfiction, writing personal essays and more literary work. And in that same vein, I've had so many amazing mentors. I think that right now in literature, we're seeing so many amazing Korean American voices come forward. I mean, one person who comes to mind is Min-jin Lee, the author of Pachinko and Free Food for Millionaires. If you look at her social media, she is always championing other artists and authors and writers, and she's just the most amazing 선배, and I look up to her so much. And then there are so many other people, people who are even younger than me, who are just continuing to be part of this rising tide, and I feel so humbled to be a part of that.
Yeah, when it comes to starting a business, there's not really, you don't get a degree in it, right? But people are starting businesses every day. A lot of our parents have started small businesses. We read about businesses in the newspaper or see them when we frequent a restaurant or store, and just having a lot of curiosity about why that business works, what it takes to build it, what it takes to bring customers in. Those are all questions that I really thought about when building C2. But it is very lonely because it's unlike kind of the AJ where there's a journalist association, or if you become a lawyer or a doctor. I went out to kind of small business associations at the time, and I get a lot of questions. I was a young person, I was in my 20s, and at the time tech was booming, so they would always assume, are you starting some tech venture? What .com are you building? And say, well, I don't even know how to use the internet, to be honest with you, right? And Chris would probably yell at me for not having any TikTok followers, but so when you're starting a more traditional type of business, you just have to go out and ask people and bug people. I had a good fortune of actually meeting the H-Mart 회장님 once, and he said, you got to make business simple, right? And I said, what do you mean? He said, don't think of me as H-Mart 회장님. Think about me as somebody who just sells 콩나물 every day. And I was like, oh, that's a good way of looking at it. And so, breaking things down into just really, fundamental, simple to digest, easy to repeat processes is something that, was really imparted upon me, not just by him, but, I have uncles that run dry cleaners or liquor stores, and just, breaking it down into its most simplest part is very, very important. So.
I mean, feel free to jump in, Gene, Chris.
Yeah, I was thinking about this question earlier, and when I got into animation and film, we didn't have Instagram, we didn't have YouTube. I've been interested in it since I was 11. So at the time, I felt, very, very alone in doing what I was doing, but at the same time, I could not think of a better thing to do than to create, whether that's drawing or in software, and I was passionate about it. And I found that over time, just being passionate about it and coming back to it, even though it was difficult, even though you had to, memorize how to draw the human body. When was the last time you drew the human body? It's a very complicated thing. But I'd come back to it at the end of the day, even though it required practice. And people around me started to get interested in what I was doing because I was interested in it. And I think the beauty of the internet now and social media is you can find your community and you can find your niche of people that will be your fellow road warriors. And so I'm very lucky that I didn't ever think about trying to water myself down and appeal to everybody in an age where, for example, anime was not a big thing, manga was not a big thing, Korean dramas and pop culture were not big things growing up. Now people go crazy about it, and I'm kind of like, what planet am I on? In the best way. So somebody once said, I forget who, that you just need 1,000 true fans of your work to sustain a good living from doing it. And that makes it a little easier to focus on being yourself. 1,000 is still a big number, but it's not everybody. And so I think by being true to yourself and true to your passions, that'll get you through. That's what got me through.
Chris, you got something to say about that?
Yeah, so for me, being a trailblazer, So before I ever got, I think a lot of people think I'm only online, but before I was ever online, I think everybody from Philadelphia like knew me as the person who's at the restaurant. And my goal was to really just serve the elders. So it wasn't really deep for me. It was like, hey, I want to serve the most authentic food to the Korean elders before they pass, because I really thought they only have about 20 to 30 years left, the first immigrants who ever came here. That was my mission. And then maybe 20, 30 years later, I was thinking about doing more fusion, but my time came online and I got to connect with more people online. So I got to serve the younger generation, but at the restaurant, all I really just wanted to do was serve Korean food and represent the food the best I can. And one of the hardship for me was just connecting the older generation with the younger generation, working with all the ajumas, the emos, who don't speak English, and serving all the customers who love jjajangmyeon, who love K-pop, Korean drama. So figuring that out was like really hard, and trying to communicate, because I think Korean. Do you guys hear me well? Okay, so Korean ajumas and Korean waitresses, they're so good to you if they know your family. But since they don't speak English, when they go to like a non-Korean customer, they're like, "What do you want?" Or what, and then they just pick out kalbi because it's the most expensive one. And they don't feel happy about that. And then they turn around, they're like, "Oh, 안녕하세요. 김치찌개 서비스 줄게요. 파전 서비스 줄게요." And they're like, "Oh, your food will be right out." They don't like that, So I got to learn a lot of all that. And that was hard to communicate with them. Like, hey, why don't we give them some service too? Why don't we give them a pancake too? But anyway, so even though that was all hardship, that's everything that I learned. And now I take it online and I serve more people online. So whatever the hardship is, I think it's just the challenges that's there to learn more and serve more people. Yeah, so that's it.
A lot of code switching in the restaurant industry, evidently. That's good to know. So then looking back, and we're not going to talk about our age here, but when we started in the morning, I was walking around. We've got a lot of young people in the crowd. It felt like the range was, some who are rising freshmen in high school, into, I heard some sophomores in college. And so if looking back, if you were to address your, say, 15-year-old self, 15-year-old Jean, 15-year-old Hannah, 15-year-old David, 15-year-old Chris, what would you say?
I can go ahead and start.
Please.
So I came from a home that experienced a lot of struggle. Linda was really brave earlier in talking about the importance of mental health, and that's also a huge priority for me. I come from a home that struggles deeply with mental illness. I'm estranged from my family, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm really proud of how far I've come and how hard I've worked to build community. And I think what I would tell my 15-year-old self is that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask trusted adults and get their advice and know that there is no shame in that. There's no shame in being open about your problems and finding your way forward. So that's one thing that I would say.
It's funny, we had a talk beforehand, and Gene was talking about his favorite movie was Back to the Future. One of his favorite movies, I guess. It's
one of them.
It's one of my favorites as well, too. And I was just thinking in my head, well, I would tell my 15-year-old self to buy 1,000 shares of Google and hold on to it, is what I would do. But in all seriousness, just having fun at 15, right? I think our parents as Korean Americans, put a lot of pressure on our children. I have 4 kids, and I kind of hear the voice of my mom coming out when I talk to my kids. I'm like, oh, I'm saying the exact same thing she told me, 공부해, blah, 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 violin, 빨리 연습해. I'm just like telling her all these things. I'm just like, maybe I need to relax a little bit as well, too. And and I think it's hard as parents because we always want the best for our children, but having that luxury to not stress out, to explore things, to be able to make mistakes at a young age, and I was so afraid to fail. As a high school student, I think that fear of failure drove me for such a long time. But more important than fearing failure is finding what you really love, and what you can do, even if you fail at it, and you're willing to do it over and over and over again. And that's something I really admire, especially with these panelists here who've been able to find that. So that's what I would tell my 15-year-old self.
I'm sorry, before we open it up, Dave, I just want to go a little bit deeper into something you said about failure, because you've had a lot of successes. But a big part of it is when we fail, how do we get back up? And can you tell us a little bit more about how you did that, and/or what resources did you pull, or where did you draw strength from? In particular in business, in entrepreneurship, where the cost of failure is tremendous, right? Like your livelihood is on it as a founder, as a business owner. Your employees are reliant on your company's success. So how did you bounce back from any failures that you may have had that are clearly outnumbered by your successes?
To your point, in a business, you have a lot of people relying on you. So, the failure of disappointing those individuals, just far outweighs anything that affects you as an individual. But, really relying on family, on friends, on community, to really, be there for you, to be able to talk to them about issues that came up. I remember, we had a issue with a teacher early on, and we had this labor dispute and almost got this lawsuit. And first time you're dealing with this, and it's just like, you feel like the world is ending, right? Like, what if I lose my business? What if I can't, pay people, pay rent, do all the things that are necessary to keep an organization going along, and just having someone to be able to put things in perspective, right? My mom would always say, hey, your father has failed in business, you have your health, you can bounce back, you can, you still have the time to do something. So to be able to put things into perspective like that, that it's not the end of the world, that, we are all here as, kind of intelligent, healthy people, we can go back and do something, but it's not easy. Right, definitely having that support to talk to somebody and understand what you're going through, I think is very, very important. Mentors, people in this crowd, this audience, everyone is here to support you to help you succeed. So.
And if I could just jump in, sometimes it can seem like people who get up on this stage like that, we've just succeeded so much, but life is just full of tons and tons and tons of failure and no's, and then it's just the key yeses, the key acceptances that are the ones that we like to highlight. But for example, if you were to look at my queue of submissions of the type of writing that I send into places, it's 9 out of 10 no's, and then the 1 yeses are the ones that, are the ones that I like to trumpet, but maybe I should be better about talking about the rejections, because it always stings, but you just get more and more comfortable with it, and that's one of the wonderful things about putting yourself out there and being vulnerable, is that you will get rewarded. And just thinking about what David said, I see a therapist, and she's a Korean American woman, which is an incredible gift to have. And when I was leaving full-time newsroom work, I felt like I had really reached a high point in my career when I was working at CNN, and she asked me, instead of running away from things, which for me it was running away from, familial instability, financial instability, what would you run toward? And it really made me think about, like, what am I actually passionate about? What, instead of just taking the thing that seems the most stable, the most sure thing with the most benefits, what am I really, really dreaming of? Like, what's that moonshot goal? And for me, it was really writing about being Korean and learning about how I learned to love this culture. So yeah, it's really thought-provoking to be able to talk to all of you and to hear everyone else's responses.
Yeah, I think riding that wave, I would have told my 15-year-old self to get out of the comfort zone, because you can create, you know, like the great Leo Messi of formerly of Barcelona did. You create chances. You know, there's some statistic I read about Babe Ruth that, yes, he's the home run king in baseball, but in order to become the home run king, he had to also become the strikeout king, because you don't hit every ball perfectly. For every 6 or maybe even 10 strikes he had a home run. You keep doing it up, you set the failure record and the success record. And I would have just said, dude, there's many chances. Just keep trying to go for it and like get uncomfortable. Because I also look back at myself, I was too addicted, I think, to being comfortable. I hated sports. I was just a lazy turtle, honestly. But then I realized it was affecting my art too. And so I decided later as an adult, like, I'm going to start running. I'm going to start doing things that artists and nerds and art school heads and anime fans don't do. And I'm going to meet people that I don't normally hang out with. And it's just, I feel like it's made me richer as a person. I mean, I hopefully hope it translates into the work. But yeah, I don't want to cheat myself out of what I could be. And I saw my 15-year-old self doing that.
Hey, can I jump in here? I really wanted to talk about this. This is like my favorite question we had. So for me, my answer would be like, make great friends. You know, when you're 14 to 18, have great friends who will love you for who you are. If you like K-pop, if you like Korean food, if you like hip hop, whatever the weird thing you might like have friends who love you for who you are. And I think that's going to develop who you are, and you're going to be confident. And to me, that's the answer to everything. I really thought about this really deep. And, you know, some people love me, some people hate me, but I really don't care. I have 5 good friends who love me for who I am, and I know I'm a good guy, you know? So on the internet, there's guys like saying like, hey, you stupid Cheng, or hey, they're saying some crazy racist stuff. I don't get upset. I'm like, I don't know them. I have 5 core people, my friends who love me who I am, and I have my parents who love me, and I have families who love me. So I think when you have people who love you for who you are, it's harder for you to question yourself, because you're like, hey, I must be a good guy, or I must be a lovable guy. And I think that's going to really give you the confidence, because if it wasn't for my friends, I don't think I would be the guy I am today, or my friends, my mentors, and my family. So I think it's really important to find the people who love you and just that you could relate. Because if you don't find that, forever you're going to be going for approval from others. You know, I'm not the way I am because I want more followers. I want more people to look at me. This like who I am is what no one wanted to be around when I was younger. And another thing I wanted to get really deep about, this is really deep, to be honest. I don't think the parents are gonna like super love it, but guys, when I was 14, 18, I was a super troublemaker. You know, I used to do a lot of illegal stuff. I'm a high school dropout. I used to have a 0.8 GPA, and I wasn't allowed in a room like this. You know, so you guys are probably looking at me like, you don't seem like that. But imagine who was around me then. My friends still accepted me for who I am. And when you're Asian and you drop out of high school, you're canceled by 99% of the Korean church, Sisanim, just everybody, you know? So my whole life, I had to grow up, be like kind of being canceled. Oh, don't hang around with that guy. He's a bad guy. But you know what's also crazy? Another thing I wanted to add is believe in yourself and love yourself and be you no matter what. Even 99% of the world cancel you, because, you know, now 99% of the people who follow me love me for what everybody cancels. So find the things you love, just keep doing it and be yourself. And please don't drop out of high school, go to college, do the good stuff. Yeah, no, seriously, do it, you know? But I don't regret it just because I had to work I always told myself I have to work 5 times harder, or else I'm gonna prove them right. Or else my chisanim who said don't hang around with him, everybody who pointed at me, they're like, hey, I know Chef Chris Shaw, I grew up with him, you know, but you gotta make people believe in your dream. So, but anyway, so surround yourself with people who love you and, you know, love you for who you are. And I think that's going to give you the confidence. And no matter what people say and turn you down or cancel you out, you have to still love yourself, because you're the only one who's going to get you out there. And hey, I'm here now where I shouldn't have been. So thank you guys for having me.
There you go. Can I add to that? Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, the wisdom in that simply is, if you try to appeal to every single person on this planet, you're going to appeal to no one. You know, going back to that 1,000 true fans idea, you know, that means that there's going to be, like Babe Ruth, some strikeouts, some people you're not going to appeal to. But if you try to appeal to everybody, because that's, I guess, the way we're wired to, and it's something I've had to struggle with too, trying to be a people pleaser, no one's really going to care. There are tons of Hollywood movies, for example, that are made by committees that aren't made by artists, where they try to make things that, well, we'll get this famous actor to voice this humanoid animal character. DreamWorks did a lot of that, no shade. And, you know, people just don't care at the end because it doesn't resonate. So don't be afraid to polarize.
Guys, can I add just one more thing? So to all the message to the guys who are 14 to 18, you guys are probably super elite to be where you're sitting right now, to have great leaders, great parents, to be sitting here. And this is just really my selfish request to you guys. I made it out and I'm doing well, but I have a lot of my core best friends, either they were locked up or they're like really bad drug addicts and doing super bad stuff, you know? But my request is, when the parents or elders are saying don't hang out with them, don't hang out with them. You shouldn't, you know? But if you could be a hope to a person like them, maybe there will be another Chris Cho in the future. So if I could ask you, you're always gonna have that one odd guy in school who's super bad or weird or whatever. You know, give them some hope, give them some love too, because that's my always message. I'm like, man, the elites and the great people will always have mentors, but guys like me are gonna always be left behind. You know, we're like disease. Don't hang with them. But if you guys want to be real leaders in life, maybe you could save a life by making sure someone don't go to jail. Make sure they don't become addicts. And I think you guys have the power to do that. And that's like coming from straight from bottom of my heart, asking a powerful young leaders to influence the guys who you might be seeing at school, at the lunch table, or playing basketball. Just ask them, hey, you know, they might need a little bit more love from you guys. So if you guys could give them that love, I think that'd be powerful. And I really ask for your help to help them. And that's my biggest mission in life, not Korean food. Korean food is what catch people's attention, so I could spread this message. But yeah, thank you.
So as promised, I think we have about 10 minutes. I can smell the Korean food right now. And one of the things that you learn in politics, you never stand in the way of lunch. So, you know, we're going to try to keep to time. But I'm going to ask my friends here to help. If there are any, before we get to our last question with our speakers, if there are any questions that you've got, write it down on a piece of paper, on the piece of paper that's on your table, and get it to Andy, one of our co-MC. I think the paper says something about a cookie. Disregard that. That's where you want to write your question. You can direct it to a particular speaker, or if you want to have it open-ended, but we're going to spend 3 minutes to gather those and bring those up quickly. And as we get those, the last question I would pose to our speakers, it's a pretty light one, but it sounds like we might go deep. We'll see. I don't know if you've heard of rose, thorn, bud. Rose, like a highlight or a success. Let me take a step back. We're going to rose, thorn, bud about whether it's being Korean American, or a rose thorn bud about your industry, or maybe both. Take the rose thorn bud the direction that you want. Rose meaning something, a highlight, a success, something positive, a win, right? A thorn is maybe, and we touched on this earlier, but a challenge that you experienced, or something that you can use more support in, even as high as and as far as you've come. Something that you can use more support in, because we are try to keep it humble, keep it real still. And then the bud is maybe some new ideas or developments that have blossomed, whether as a Korean American community or in your respective industries or both. Something you're looking forward to knowing more about or experiencing. So rose, thorn, bud. Anybody want to take the first shot?
I'll go ahead.
Okay, I like it.
So rose. So, gosh, this is something that came up at our table. Both Jean and I had the chance to move to Korea as young adults, and for me, that was a life-changing experience. I had never stepped foot in Asia before I moved there, sight unseen, right after college. I was lucky enough to get a journalism fellowship in Seoul, South Korea, and at the time, I was illiterate in Hangul. I could barely speak anything, but it was such a gift to be able to learn about our culture on my own terms, not through the lens of my parents, who I had a fraught relationship with, but to get to know other young adults, to learn the language, and to feel that connection to Korean society in such a beautiful way, and such a fun way. It was such a fun place to live as a young adult, and I really dream of splitting my time between New York and Seoul. So that is a true rose. I would like to echo all of the speakers who talked about what a wonderful place Korea is. Of course, every country has its own struggles, but get to know Korea on your own terms. The thorn. I mean, I struggled so much as a young person. I felt very adrift, dealing with a lot of issues of abuse as a child, but I've been so lucky to have those lifelong friends, to have those mentors who looked out for me and helped me, like what Chris was saying earlier about, people who save a life. Yes, it's my guidance counselors, my best friends since I was 12, those friends' parents. They've stuck with me and they have continued to help me to blossom in this way. And I'm so grateful for that found family. And then in terms of how I would like to continue to grow, that bud, I have been lucky enough to teach a little bit over the past, year and a half. I've gotten some great fellowships from Indiana University, the Kenyon Review, and now I'm teaching a class for Black, Indigenous, people of color writers through an organization called Kundiman, which focuses on Asian American writers. And it's been so gratifying to be able to encourage young writers who are up and coming the way that I was just a few years ago. And I hope to get even better at teaching and to touch even more lives.
I think I might want to start with the thorn first because it'll lead into the rose. I think growing up Korean American is, the batteries are not included per se. The instruction manual may not be either, and you have to make sense of two completely different universes, and that can be confusing. I often felt like I was too American in, say, youth group at church, but then I go to school where there were not a lot of Asians, and I'd be too Asian, and just sort of, feeling confused about that. But then the rose of it is I realized that's really cool because you can play any position on the team. You have two languages and cultures and ways of thinking that you can draw from, and you can create. You can genre mash, I guess, as they would say in screenwriting. You can create whole new combinations of things. And I think that leads into the bud, too, because I'm excited to see, new ideas coming from new talents. A movie like Parasite in Korea is so amazing because there's a little bit of horror, there's a little bit of tension, socio-political commentary, and comedy. And who would have thought to take all those things together that didn't belong together before and create something new? And so that's what I think in the time we're in with the internet and social media and everybody being exposed to everything, we can find new ways to be human, and that's just so cool.
I'm going to start backwards in terms of the bud. Just seeing all of the Korean American elected officials and the progress that's been made in politics is truly amazing. We have several people in Congress, we have several people at the state legislature level. In Atlanta, we have 2 people in the state reps. We have 2 city council people, and then we used to have the Northern District Attorney, formerly, who basically runs the FBI in the Southeast and does all the prosecution, was a Korean American. And so being able to see those things, especially for the next generation, is truly powerful, and to continue to build upon those things is something I'm really excited to see. I would say a thorn is that, yes, we've made a lot of progress in terms of political representation, but in terms of business, especially at a corporate board level, right? So a lot of these big companies that you read about in the paper or you see, right? You see a Starbucks, you see a McDonald's. Korean Americans are very successful, in the business world, in banking and finance, and yet, very, very small representation at that corporate board level, which really affects who does actually become CEOs of a Fortune 100, 500, 1,000 company, and really pushing for that is something I do start seeing, some Korean Americans right now trying to really push forward, and so hopefully that'll become a bud. But right now that's definitely, I would say, a thorn. And then a rose is definitely seeing everyone here. Right? I think about my own children, right, which just brings a smile to my face, and to see all the young people here, really taking that step, as Chris was saying, to learn, to develop, to really get onto that path of becoming that next generation of leadership is really exciting for me.
So I actually only thought of the rose, but guys, I love being Korean American. My whole life, I just really love being Korean American. To me, I grew up thinking damn, it sucks that they don't get to grow up with kimchi, samgyeopsal, galbi, and I could have everything that, an American could want. And another thing is, what I love about being Korean American is I could be Korean as much as I want, and I could be American as much as I want. And I think that's the beauty of it. I tell people, I could go into a room of 100 Black people or African American, and I'm like, yo, I'm the Asian boy, and then they love me. I could walk into a meeting of white, Black, or any of color, and people would just love me for it. I feel like I had friends who grew up saying I wish I was white, I wish I was Black, but I don't know. I don't think there's anything beneficial about that. Another thing, if I could just really bring out is I'm probably one of the hottest Asian chefs out here, and if I wanted to compete with the white chef Gordon Ramsay, that was gonna be pretty damn tough, So I like to take advantage of who I am and what we represent, and so that's that. So that's the highlight of it. And actually, the bud is. There's not many people on the internet who's really owning Korean food or Korean cuisine. But now I think after me, David Chang, Roy Choi, a lot of people, I see so many more kids start cooking Asian food. And I see so many kids showing their parents. Because when we were younger, we weren't really trying to show our parents because Asian parents weren't pretty cool or whatever, But I see more people on Instagram, TikTok saying, hey, this is my 엄마. I see people saying 여보세요, and these are super cool. So just be proud of who you are. I think I said that before. Be proud of who you are, Korean American, and that's my win. I just love being Korean American, and I get to be I I get invited to conference calls like this because I'm Korean, and I get to be, invited to just an American conference because I'm American. Like I got 2 gigs of everything, rather it's catering, social media, or just like meetings and everything. So yeah, I love being Korean American.
So we're very close to time. Andy, thank you so much for, he did me a favor, consolidated some of the questions here. So I think we're going to close out. I'm going to ask, there's some pretty heavy questions. Maybe we can talk about it, during lunch. But I just want to close real quick by saying, as you can see, everyone on stage has made so many advances in their respective fields, professionally, but also personally. And we do hope that as you've listened and as you talk with us over the next hour, that you see us and you hear us and you think, well, if they can do it, I can do it, and I can do it better than they can. Right? That is our sincere hope. That I can do it, if they can do it, and I can do it better than they can. And so the last question, the last question I'm going to ask our distinguished speakers will close out 3 things. Number 1, how can we contact you if we'd like to? Social media, email, whatever. Number 1. Number 2, what is your hobby? Outside of what you've already discussed. And then number 3, what is your favorite Korean food, which will help segue into our next segment. So let's start with, can we start with Jean, and then we'll go down this way, and we'll end with Chris.
Sure. I think I put it in the information book that you guys have on the tables, but I can be reached at email, info@onelastmonster.com, or active on Instagram, taking a break at the moment, but pretty active on Instagram at OneLastMonster. And what was the second question?
Hobby and then food.
Hobby. So I got pretty into long distance running and playing soccer. I ran the New York City Marathon 2 years ago, which my 15-year-old self would never have believed. Favorite food? I think it's galbi, honestly. Either that or a galbi burrito, because I do like Mexican food too.
I'm so hungry right now. So I'm going to start with my favorite food. I really love Korean fried chicken. Oh my God, I eat like a monster. You can get in touch with me. I have a website, hannahbay.com, and I'm at hanbay on Twitter and at hannahbay on Instagram. It's in the program. But I would love to hear from all of you. And then what was hobbies, right? Okay, so I also am an illustrator, and that was truly just a fun thing that I did with my husband. I hadn't taken an art class since 8th grade, but I really love Korean food as well, and so we started drawing the food that we cook and eat together. And it has really blossomed into its own kind of part of our work and our creative practice, and I have an Instagram for that too. It's at Eat, Drink, Draw. And it brings me so much joy to bring my love of Korean food and of art together into this one hobby.
My hobby, I actually have a pretty big garden, almost on the verge of a farm, and I have a lot of chickens actually as well too. So I raise chickens, and
keep those chickens away from Hannah. She likes fried chicken.
Yeah. So we used to have a couple of roosters. We send those guys away. If you ever watch Minari, roosters, 술모없어, they don't lay eggs and they don't taste very good. But I have a lot of Minari, I have a lot of buchu, 깻잎, all the Korean staples. Anyways. The other question was food. I like humble food. So I love eating bunchik like all the time. So like milk and cookies. You cannot just eat kimbap by itself. You have to have kimbap and like some tteokbokki together. So never buy one without the other is what I would suggest. Oh yeah, I have no social media handles. You can email me. My email is simple. It's DJ Kim. I actually have a cooler email handle than probably Chris. DJKim79 at Gmail if you ever want to talk to me.
Last but not least, Chris.
So hobby. My hobby is I like to check out Korean restaurants. I just love checking out different Korean restaurants to see how people live in different cities. That's like literally my hobby. And like social media is my hobby. That's what I do for fun outside the restaurant. My favorite food, to be honest, I couldn't think of anything, but I'm just going to I just wrote everything down. I'm like, whatever you guys said is my favorite food too. Kalbi, fried chicken, gochujang, and like gatnip and punchik. I rock with it all day, you know? And I feel like my Korean food changes all the time. Today, if you guys wanted to go eat, that was my favorite Korean food to eat. Best email to reach me at is team@chefchrischo.com. To be honest, guys, I'm the worst person to follow up on social media like DMs or email. But if you guys ever wanted to do something, I would even love it. If 10, 20 people want to go on a Zoom, I would rather give an hour, 2 hours of my time than replying back to email, or because I'm really bad at that. So if that could be done, we could do that. But if you guys really want to reach out to me, I'm at team@chefchrischo.com. But I'm telling you, I'm going to be really slow on the emails, guys. But that's it.
Thank you. Can we give a big round of applause to all of our speakers, our leaders, Korean American ladies and gentlemen? Thank you, and thank you again to Judy and Andy and Jin and the volunteers for putting on hopefully a wonderful program. And thank you for taking the time to listen. We look forward to chatting with you. Please enjoy lunch.